You guys will never believe what happened. I just turned 18 last week, and I'm in this artsy lakefront town called Lakemore for a summer theater workshop, chasing my dream of writing stories that light up the stage. There's this guy, Theo, a retired playwright who runs the workshop, with this soulful, magnetic vibe. Think gray curls, warm brown eyes that seem to see right through you, and a voice that could turn a monologue into a heartbeat. Last night, I stopped by his place to return a script I'd borrowed, expecting our usual chill chat over coffee. But then he looked at me differently, asked a question that hit me like a spotlight, and suddenly the air was electric. Want to know how it went down? Keep watching, because this story's all about one moment that burns brighter than the lake at sunset. Like and subscribe for more. Sarah's 18th birthday, just a week past, felt like the first act of a play she was only beginning to write. Each day in Lakemore, a charming lakefront town nestled between shimmering waters and pine-dotted hills, was a fresh page, her heart buzzing with the freedom of her new adulthood. Her rented room, a cozy attic space with slanted ceilings, was her sanctuary, cluttered with notebooks, crumpled playbills, and the scent of cedar mingling with lake air that slipped through a cracked window. Her latest drafter one-act play about a dreamer caught in a storm pulsed with her restless energy, its dialogue sharp and vivid, much like the desires stirring in her chest. But lately her thoughts kept circling back to Theo, the retired playwright who ran the theater workshop she'd joined, his soulful presence a quiet pull she couldn't shake. At 63, Theo was a former Broadway playwright whose warmth and wisdom had captivated her since she arrived in Lakemore 3 weeks ago. His gray curls framed a face weathered by years of storytelling. His warm brown eyes carried the depth of countless opening nights, and his hands, worn from scribbling scripts and gesturing passionately in lecture halls, moved with a quiet, deliberate grace. His nice work, Sarah, after her first workshop reading, paired with the smile that lingered a beat too long, it set her heart racing. She'd told herself it was just admiration for a mentor who saw her potential, who'd lent her his scripts and shared tales of his theater days over coffee at the workshop's end. But her just-turned-exting confidence fueled a boldness she couldn't tame, that spark that flared brighter each time their eyes met. Tonight, that spark led her to his door, script in hand, her heart pounding with possibilities she wasn't ready to name. The evening was soft. The lakefront town hushed except for the gentle lapping of waves against the shore and the distant hum of crickets. Sarah had borrowed Theo's scripted dog-eared copy of his first play, The Lantern's Edge, a story of love and regret under city lights, for inspiration. Its pages marked with his handwritten notes that felt like secrets shared just with her. Now, standing on the porch of his shingle-style house, its windows glowing warmly against the twilight, she knocked, her notebook and the script tucked under her arm. The air was thick with the scent of pine and distant bonfires, the lake's surface catching the last streaks of sunset. Theo opened the door, his flannel shirt slightly unbuttoned, revealing a hint of collarbone, his smile easy but curious, his brown eyes catching hers in the porch light's soft glow. "Back so soon?" he said, his voice a low, warm hum that seemed to resonate in her chest. "Thought you'd keep that script a bit longer, maybe stage a coup." Sarah laughed, stepping inside as he gestured her in, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and her just-turned daring. "Couldn't risk you sending the theater police," she teased, holding out the script, her voice light but laced with a charge she couldn't hide. "Bice, I owe you for letting me borrow it. Coffee? My treat." She nodded toward his kitchen, her hazel eyes glinting with invitation, her confidence buoyed by the freedom of her new age. He hesitated, his gaze flickering over her face, then nodded, taking the script and setting it on a wooden side table, cluttered with books and a half-empty wine glass. Coffee it is, he said, his smile warm but tinged with something cautious, like an actor stepping into an unrehearsed scene. But only if you tell me what you thought of The Lantern's Edge. Deal? The living room was a cozy haven, its walls lined with bookshelves stuffed with plays, novels, and yellowed programs from long ago shows. A worn leather couch sat by a wide window overlooking the lake, its surface shimmering under the rising moon. A record player spun a soft jazz tune, its notes weaving through the air like a quiet pulse, mingling with the scent of old books, cedar, and a faint trace of Theo's cologne, something earthy, like sandalwood. They settled on the couch, mugs of coffee steaming between them, the script resting on the cushion like a silent prompt. The jazz record crackled softly, its melody wrapping the room in a warm glow, the lake's reflection casting silver ripples across the walls. Their conversation started easy. Theo's play, its bittersweet dialogue, Sarah's notes on its characters, but her mind kept drifting to flashes of their past weeks together. She remembered her first workshop, when Theo had leaned over her script, his shoulder brushing hers as he pointed out a line she could sharpen, his voice low and encouraging. She thought of a group dinner at a local tavern, where he'd laughed at her clumsy attempt to, quote, Chekhov, his eyes crinkling with warmth. And that moment at the workshop's opening night, when he'd caught her eye across the crowded room, his smile holding hers like a shared secret. Each memory carried a spark, a hint of something more she'd tried to dismiss as her imagination. But now, sitting close, she wasn't so sure. The conversation deepened, the jazz notes fading to a soft hum as they spoke. Theo shared stories of his Broadway days, late nights, rewriting scripts under flickering stage lights. The thrill of a standing ovation, the sting of a critic's pen. Sarah opened up about her 18th birthday, the rush of freedom it brought, like a stage door swinging wide. Turning 18 feels like permission, she said, her voice soft but steady, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. Like I can finally chase what scares me, write what matters. You know, Theo nodded, his gaze steady, his hands resting on his knees, close enough that she could feel their warmth. I know, he said, his voice low, resonant. I saw that in you the first day. That fire. Your writing's got it, Sarah. It's raw, but it's real. His words landed like a spotlight, warm and exposing, making her heart skip. She smiled, leaning forward, the couch creaking softly under her shift. Careful, Theo, she teased, her voice playful but edged with daring. You keep talking like that, I might think you're trying to make me your star pupil. Her hazel eyes locked on his, her just-turned 18 confidence, pushing her to test the air between them, the room shrinking. He chuckled, setting his mug on the side table, his eyes holding hers a moment longer than usual. Maybe you already are, he said, his voice warm but carrying a new weight, a curiosity that made her pulse quicken. The jazz record spun on, its notes a soft undercurrent to the growing tension, the lake outside glinting like a stage set for their scene. Sarah's mind raced, replaying more moments, the time Theo had stayed late after a workshop to help her brainstorm, his hand brushing hers as he sketched a stage layout on her notebook, the way he'd caught her staring during a group reading, his smile teasing but kind, the quiet moment when he'd lent her The Lantern's Edge, his fingers lingering on the script as he'd said, "This one's special to me. Let me know what you think." Each memory tightened the thread between them, pulling her closer to the edge of something she wasn't sure she could name. They talked on, the conversation weaving through their dreams and fears. Sarah shared her struggle to make her dialogue sing, her worry that her stories wouldn't resonate. Theo countered with tales of his own early failures, how he'd learned to trust his voice, his eyes never leaving hers as he spoke. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, each word a step closer to something unspoken. She noticed the way his fingers tapped lightly on the couch, the faint creases around his eyes when he smiled, the way his voice softened when he said her name. Her just-turned-tine heart was bold, but his presence steady, warm, knowing, made it race in a way she hadn't expected. "Hey guys," Sarah said, her voice bright but laced with a playful edge, as if speaking to her imaginary audience, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leaned back, breaking the tension for a moment. "We're about to get into this spicy portion of the story, so please don't forget to like and subscribe." She grinned, the words a playful nod to her boldness, but her heart pounded as she turned back to Theo, the air buzzing with anticipation, the jazz record's notes swelling like a cue. Theo shifted, his body angling toward her, his elbow brushing hers on the couch, the contact sending a spark through her like a stage light, flaring to life. He set his mug down, his movements deliberate, his brown eyes searching hers with a new intensity, like an actor stepping into a pivotal scene. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, steady, cutting through the hum of the room, "what do you really want from me?" The question hit like a curtain drop, sharp and unexpected, stripping away the playful banter and leaving her exposed. Her heartbeat quickened, her breath catching as she held his gaze, the lake's silver light casting shadows across his face. She could laugh it off, dodge with a joke, keep the moment light, but her just-turned-18 heart wasn't backing down. Her mind flashed to every moment they'd shared, his quiet encouragement after her first reading, the way he'd lingered at the tavern, the warmth in his voice when he'd handed her his script. She'd told herself it was just mentorship, but now, with his eyes locked on hers, she knew he'd noticed, her really noticed, and the truth was undeniable. "Ah," she started, her voice unsteady, her eyes flickering to his lips before meeting his gaze again. Instead of retreating, she leaned in, the space between them shrinking, her shoulder brushing his, the tension thick enough to taste. "I don't know," she whispered, but her body betrayed her, her hand resting on the couch, inches from his, the warmth of his presence pulling her closer. He didn't move, his eyes steady, warm but piercing, like he was reading lines she hadn't written yet. "You do," he said, his voice soft but firm, carrying the weight of a director calling for truth. "You've been different since you turned 18. Bolder. I've noticed, Sarah, every glance, every time you linger after class. And now you're here in my living room at 10 o'clock at night. So tell me, what do you want?" Her mouth went dry, the jazz record fading to a distant hum, the room narrowing to just them, the couch, the lake's glow, the script between them like a forgotten prop. She thought of her birthday, the rush of freedom, the urge to chase what scared her. She thought of Theo's workshop, how his feedback had made her feel seen, how his stories had made her feel alive. He'd noticed her boldness, her glances, her heart, and now he was waiting for her answer. Her friend Mia's warning echoed faintly. "He's got you all flustered." "Be careful, Sarah," but careful wasn't what she wanted. Not tonight, not with her heart pounding like a drum roll. "Maybe I want this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her hand brushing his on the couch, the touch electric, sending a shiver through her. "Maybe I want to know you." "Really? Know you?" The words felt like a line delivered without rehearsal, raw and true, her just-turned-18 courage carrying her forward. Theo's smile was slow, knowing, his fingers curling slightly around hers, not pulling away, the contact warm and steady. "That's a big want," he said, his voice low, rich with the weight of their moment, like a monologue meant just for her. "You sure you're ready for it, Sarah? You just turned 18. The stage is wide open." She laughed, a shaky sound, her heart pounding with the thrill of her boldness. "I'm ready to find out," she said, her voice playful but honest, her eyes locked on his, the jazz notes swelling like applause. "What about you, Theo? What do you want?" His chuckle was warm, his thumb tracing a slow line across her hand, the touch sparking a fire in her chest. "Your trouble," he said, his eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and something deeper, something that made the room feel like a stage set for two. "But I've always liked a good story. And you, Sarah, you're one I can't stop reading." The words landed like a perfect cue, her heart soaring, the tension between them alive and pulsing. They didn't move, the couch holding them close, the lake outside shimmering like a backdrop. The conversation stretched on, hours melting away as they dove deeper, the jazz record looping, its notes a soft heartbeat to their words. Sarah shared more than she'd planned, her fears of her stories falling flat, her excitement about her new adulthood, her dreams of writing plays that leave audiences breathless. Theo listened, his eyes never leaving hers, his presence grounding her like a director shaping a scene. He shared, too, his regrets from Broadway, the plays he never wrote, the way her boldness had caught him off guard like a character rewriting the script mid-performance. Flashbacks filled the silences, painting their connection in vivid strokes. She remembered the first workshop, when Theo had read her draft aloud, his voice giving her words life, his praise making her feel like she could conquer the stage. She recalled a rainy afternoon when they'd stayed late, sketching stage designs together, his laugh warm as she'd smudged ink on her cheek, and the quiet moment at the workshop's opening night, when he'd found her alone by the theater's marquee, his hand brushing hers as he'd said, "You're going to surprise everyone, Sarah." Each memory deepened the moment, the couch, a stage where their story unfolded, the lake's light casting them in silver and shadow. The night grew late, the air heavier, the tension a constant hum. Sarah's boldness pushed her to keep going, to lean into the spark, but Theo's question lingered, a challenge she couldn't ignore. "You didn't answer me," she said, her voice teasing but pointed, her hand still close to his. "What do you want, Theo?" He leaned back, his smile slow, his eyes tracing her face like he was memorizing a script. "I want to see where this goes," he said, his voice soft but deliberate, like a line delivered to a hushed audience. "You're bold, Sarah. Bolder than I expected, and I'm not sure I want to stop noticing you." Her breath caught, the room shrinking further, the lake's glow framing them like a final act. She thought of Mia's warning again, but it felt distant, drowned out by the pulse of her heart, the thrill of her new adulthood. Theo's hands stayed near hers, the space between them charged with unspoken promise. "You're making it really hard to keep this workshop casual," she said, her voice a mix of teasing and truth, her hazel eyes locked on his, her just-turned Daton courage holding her steady. He laughed, his hand shifting closer, his fingers brushing hers again, the touch warm and electric. "Workshop casual's overrated," he said, his voice low, rich, carrying the weight of their shared moment. "What do you want, Sarah?" Last chance to answer. Her heart pounded, the memory of his question echoing, the spark of his touch still warm on her skin. What did she want? Safety, simplicity, the life she knew? Or this him, the thrill, the fire he ignited in her heart? "I want to keep this," she said, her voice steady now, her eyes locked on his, her hand pressing lightly against his. "This feeling, this moment. You." His smile widened, his eyes twinkling with warmth and intensity, like a director seeing a scene come to life. "That's a bold choice," he said, his voice soft but charged, the jazz record's final notes fading into silence. "But I like bold." The room was still, the lake outside a silver mirror, reflecting their moment back to them. Theo's hand lingered near hers, the air alive with possibility, the script between them forgotten. "Good night, Sarah," he said, his voice soft but heavy, his eyes holding hers as he stood, offering her a way out, but leaving the door open. "Good night, Theo," she said, her voice a mix of teasing and truth, her heart pounding as she stood, grabbing her notebook, the spark between them brighter than the lake's moonlight. She stepped toward the door, her just-turned teen heart racing, the memory of his question, his touch, lingering like a play she couldn't stop rehearsing. She walked back to her room, the night air cool, the town's rhythm soothing. As she closed her door, she leaned against it, her heart ablaze with the thrill of what might come next, knowing she'd answered his question with a boldness that felt like the first line of a new act, one move at a time.